Okay, so now time to make our android look a little bit more human. So let's start by adding a few features here. The nose is obviously going to have nostrils and things like that. And as you finish off your drawing, a lot of times you'll have these. You might start with these construction lines and then sort of erase them out later. Especially when you're just starting to figure out the proportions. But the nose kind of sweeps up here with these two lines up here, and then the eyeballs are gonna kind of have these eyelids over them, right? So they're really gonna be the eye socket's a little bit bigger than the eye, right? And so there's a bunch of tissue around the eye inside the eye socket. But you're gonna want to start figuring out the shape, the shape of the eye. And remember, the eyelid too, it's not like a symmetrical shape. It's sort of it's bigger on one side and then sweeps down, depending on the shape. Everybody's got slightly different shape of the eye, that's what make everybody's eye look different. But a lot of that can be done through observation. What we're doing here is just sort of the generic eye. So we're just kind of making it up. But there's going to be an iris, and there's going to be a pupil inside. So we can start building those things up based on those proportions. And you want to get the you want to try to do it somewhat symmetrically, right? So then we have the the nostrils, the eyes, the different facial features. You want to try to line up the eyes so they don't wind up looking too cockeyed. But again, you never usually see the entire iris and pupil in the eye. It's always sort of covered up by the eyelid a little bit. So you kind of have to balance that, whether the person's really excited and the eyelids way up, or whether they're sort of sleepy or somewhere in between, or just relaxed, right? So that's going to depend on the person. So and then you could start looking at some of the other proportions here. Like if you look at what happens here, you have the bottom of the lip, right? And so we're going to make another generic measurement here of how the lips are going to look, right? And so this is going to also depend on the person. Some people have longer faces than others. We're making sort of a generic face here with sort of a bolder chin, right? And so with a woman, right, this chin might be narrower than a man's. A man might have a wider chin. It really depends on the person too. Some people just have wider features than others. So you just that sort of thing is done through observation. But also keep in mind that the mouth is really going to be the width of these lines here that come. So when you draw those lips, if they look disproportionate, it's probably because we're not extending these lines here. So the bottom of the chin, there's a little bit of a line there, and it depends on how pronounced it is, depends on the expression the person's making, how tight the muscles around the face are. But that's basically where we're at. So so far we've created some basic proportions there, and we've kind of come up with a very generic face, right, so far. So that's where you can go in and start cleaning up the details. Like a lot of times, a lot of times you don't see the iris. You might just, people with dark colored eyes, you might see more just the iris and the pupil are kind of the same. But a lot of times, the light strikes it, and even a darker eye, you're going to see different proportions there. So you can kind of add in little highlights and things like that if you want. But so there it is so far, the face with the basic proportions. So if anything's looking funny there, I can just kind of clean it up, go erase. And then we want to look at the neck too. So the neck starts usually at the base of the skull. You don't want to start drawing the neck here because that looks really funny, right? So I'm going to undo those and just sort of draw from here, right? And so that's sort of the base width. And a woman's neck might be something more like this, right, but with less muscles on it. But we want to draw from the base of the skull. And if you want to draw the shoulders and things like that, you're going to want to do those proportions. But right now we'll just do the head. Okay, some other important proportions here are going to be the ears. So the ears are going to come out this way, and we're going to draw just the ear, using this line as the top of the ear. So the top of the eye is the top of the ear, and the bottom of the nose is, or yeah, the bottom of the nose is going to be the bottom of the ear there. So you can draw that same thing on both sides. If you look at really most of the time, though, the ear's going to be more down here. So it just really comes across the bottom there more so than the bottom of the nose. So the top of the eye, the top of the eyebrow, and the bottom of the ear. Most people's ears this long, and some vary in between the bottom of the nose there. Depending on how big the ear is. But I like to use the mouth. Some people like to use the bottom of the nose, but really, it's always going to vary between there. So there you are. There's some generic head proportions, and you can go ahead and clean up the features here. But this gives you sort of a solid foundation of how to start really balancing proportions of the face.